أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا رب لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد بارك وسلم تسليما. اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا رزقا طيبا. صل على سيدنا محمد بارك وسلم تسليما. So far we've done حروف الحلقي in detail, um, and that was Hamza, ha, ha, ain, kha, and ghain. We looked at the articulation point individually, considering the sifat of each letter. Okay, so first, um, so the sifat that so far we should all know, like, no, not too much detail, but somewhat we should know. First, hams versus jahar. And that is if the articulation point do not collide with force. That what that means is that there's no pressure that's transferred to the vocal cords. Vocal cords stay open, and there is a flow of breath in letters of hums. Opposite to the letters are which the articulation points collide with force, hence the closing, complete closure or partial closure of the vocal cords, and we have some very little or no breath at all. And in these categories, all the letters fall one way or the either one. So either they are mahmus or they are majhur. And then second, so that's how we if a letter is as hums, we said just looked at it with the articulation point plus if it has hums, what it means. Then the second category is when it's the letters in regards to the flow of the sound. And we divide it into three categories, which is shidda, tawassut, and rahawa. If the articulation is closed, then obviously there's no running of the sound. If it's partially closed, then there's sound makes its way to it just there's a divergence for the sound to come out, so it takes time. So that's why it's a tawassut. And then the rahawa, where the sound flows freely. So those letters, they take the most time when there is sakina on them because of the this quality. Now the another quality, sorry, I'm just doing two things at a time and I can't seem to be doing that properly. Okay. Okay. And then we looked at quality of isti'la versus istifal. This was in regards to the posterior tongue lowered or raised. So when it was posterior tongue was raised, those are the letters of isti'la. In those, the sound travels and it just directed towards the roof of the mouth. So the sound is heavy. Istifal is just where the sound stays, it's light. And then we have itbaq and infitah, where the middle of the tongue is also raised. And itbaq can only happen in the letters of isti'la. And the rest of them. And then we have the last one. That was not in concern with the Tajweed. It was just with Arabic language. So we did not look at it quite just in detail. So now going forward so I just wanted to recap the sifat. So when we are looking at the letters articulation point, we know why I'm saying, okay, this is hums, this is this, so what it means. So now moving to al-lisan. tongue it's further divided into four parts: أقصى اللسان, وسط اللسان, حافة اللسان, and طرف اللسان. In أقصى اللسان, we have two letters, قاف and كاف. Okay, the further back, furthest is قاف, قاف, and كاف. If you see in the diagram here, the articulation point of the qaf is slightly back. That's why sometimes I've said when I'm correcting that, just move the makhrij slightly back, because we try to say qaf. That is me trying to make kaf heavier. Okay, so it's right at the back, qaf. Okay, so qaf we pronounce the letter from the farthest part of the tongue, and it is the soft palate. Its articulation point, you can see, is closed, and obviously posterior tongue is raised. So the basic ones we had, this is a jahr letter. So what does that mean? That means the articulation points hit with force. Okay, so I'm not saying kaf. I'm saying qaf. There's a force to it. And because articulation point is completely closed, it's a shidda letter. Okay, so shidda is not strength as such, like hitting with the strength. So in this, shidda comes as if the articulation point is closed or not. And then the back of the tongue is raised, so it's isti'la, and it is not, the middle of the tongue is not raised, so it's infitah. Okay, and now comes another quality, qalqala. This is one of the first letters we're seeing, I think, is it? Which is jahar plus shidda. SubhanAllah, my mind, I don't know where it is today. I think so. Jahar shidda hamza, yeah, there is. So here we saw that there was no way for the sound to escape. So that's why when we say mu'minun, there is no, almost the sound stops. But for qaf, because this is further up and there's a sound, when articulation points hit, because of the strength of the, just with which they collide, and because of the articulation point being closed, when the two separate, there's a sound, and that sound is produced with the process of qalqala. Okay, I was actually thinking whether I should put these slides in online, and then I just got time, so I thought, okay, let's quickly put that. So what is qalqala? Qalqala is a disturbed movement. It's like bouncing of the sound in a way, but more of a subhanAllah, I remembered, I think when I was going through qalqala, I said I can't remember, like I don't know this particular what this phrase mean, and subhanAllah, I remember asking question from a teacher, and subhanAllah, she said it doesn't, it means literally that the pot shook, but when you actually put something, just imagine putting boiling water, even with the kettle. But if you put a pot and you have, obviously you have water in it, and when the water starts boiling, there's a particular sound. Even if you're not in the room, you can hear that. So she goes, that's what it means. That's the particular sound. We like, just there's a pressure, and that's like it's a bursting kind of a sound. So that's qalqala. Because of the pressure when the two articulation points part, then there's a bursting kind of a sound. That's qalqala. So the word رزقنا رزقنا أنفقتم أقسموا. And here, make sure now there are three stages, three strengths. Okay. Subhanallah. Words are escaping me today. We can categorize qalqala with into three according to like how strong the qalqala is. Okay. So first, the least is when the qalqala letter is coming in the middle of a word, and it is razaqna. That's the least. Then we have qalqala letter when it's qalqala letter is coming at the end of a word, but it doesn't have no tashdid on it. Okay, so imagine there was no tashdid here, and I'm stopping at it, and I would say haqq, haqq. And the last one, the strongest, is when the qalqala letter is coming at the end and you're stopping at it and it has tashdid on it. This would be haqq. In the strongest, what you need to do is the sound that there's a momentarily you can't hear anything. It's not just like I'll say ha, and then there's a bounce comes after a little pause. Haqq. That's the strongest qalqala. Uqitat. And regardless whether the qalqala letters come in the middle with the tashdid or without the tashdid, it's the same. Only difference is, excuse me, please. In the middle, I'm giving it timing, more time. First little timing for the sakina, and then the second for the uqitat. وَيُحِقُّ. And be mindful with the qalqala, especially of qaf, when we are coming from a kasra. We can actually make it وَيُحِقُّ. We lose the isti'la, that heaviness of the qaf when we're coming from a kasra and we're doing the qalqala. So be careful with that. قدم فقه قتل مقاعد قيل ناعق. Now moving on to the letter kaf. Kaf is slightly ahead. Sorry, subhanallah. See, kaf is slightly ahead of qaf, even though it seems like that the back of the tongue is raised, but this is that's its articulation point. Okay, and this, because of this thing, the articulation point is high. We need to put an extra effort to keep this letter light. Obviously, the qualities, how the scholars came with them, is, there was letters that they were pronouncing it, and then they came, okay, now to help non-Arabs recite Quran properly, all these qualities and how you can define one letter from the other letter, they came about. So this was the articulation point, and this was not a heavy letter. Hence, it has been put in istifal. And for that, there's extra care to be taken when you're pronouncing it. You need to make sure you are not you're not directing your sound towards the roof of the palate, because that would make it heavier. And also because I think just if we was too heavy, you can't distinguish between the qaf and the kaf. Okay, so kaf is mahmus or a hams, it has hams. Um, and first thing, articulation point slightly ahead of the qaf, and it touches qaf is like the here, soft palate. Kaf is the hard palate. And there's a bone underneath. That's the hard palate with the, it just, it starts. That's where kaf makhrij is. And obviously this one is also the articulation point is closed. So now articulation point of the kaf, it just, there is almost no strength at all. The two articulation points collide and there's almost no strength at all. Okay. So what's happening is when I say the first one, akbar, akbar, if I was to actually put any strength, like I would hit the two articulations just with some strength, I would say akbar, ak. So you need to be very careful. It needs to be very, you need to pronounce the kaf with softness, gentleness. Kaf, not kaf. Akbar, if I was to just go like harder, and it makes, there's a qalqala that comes. Istikbara, zahrak, يتزكى, تتفكرون, توكل, ملك, ذكر, كسب, كافر, حكيم, كونوا. Now we're moving on to the wasatul lisan. And first one is we pronounce jim, sheen, and a ya from it. And here you can say it's not exactly wasatul lisan. Slightly ahead, and then where it's touching is also the part that's, of the palate that starts to come down. And I think we make mistake when we try to hit sometime, like, if you're just trying to go literally, and then because you can't really hit the middle of the tongue to the middle of the palate, the sound of the jim and the sheen and the ya they get mixed. So just know it's slightly, not exactly middle, slightly in towards the front, and even where it's hitting is slightly in the front as well. With the jim, make sure it's a hard hit, because that's where we get the ya and a sheen mixed in. Okay, so the middle of the tongue to what lies opposite of the upper palate, that's the articulation point. And it is a shidda letter. The articulation point is closed, and the articulation points are colliding with the force. Aj. And because of that, there's a qalqala that's, we are hearing the jim because with the qalqala, this is a sakina. And then it's a letter of istifal. That means the back of the tongue is not raised. And obviously, if it's istifal, it's infitah. Yajtanibu. Yaj. What I hear sometimes is yaj. Ajma. Now, it wouldn't be that much with the yajtanibu because ya present there, but might be here ajmalu. Okay, so be careful with that. It's ajmalu. There's a force with which you're hitting the two parts, and that's giving you a clear jim sound. Or yunajjikum. It's not yunajjikum. I'm hitting the middle of the tongue somewhat, and to the palate. Yunajjikum. يجعلون, there's an extra ha, please excuse me. سجدا, نجانا, جعل, رجع, جرف, جاهد, الرجيم, وجوه. So be careful with the jim, so you don't actually sound the ya in it, mixed ya. Now sheen, the middle of the tongue dual lies opposite it of the upper palate. Now, if you notice in the diagram here, there's a distance, okay? And that's what, and also tongue is more spread, and it's the entire tongue to the entire palate. The articulation point, there's not, obviously, first, it doesn't quite collide, okay? Because of which this, the vocal cords stay open and there's humps in it. And also because there is free, the sound is flowing freely from the open articulation point. Now, how the entire tongue to the entire palate, the whole space is was giving it the sifa of the fashi, spreading, because it has a wider articulation point. The sound spreads. It sounds, it's like spreads, in your entire mouth, kind of a thing. And this is one of the reasons that Sheen does not do idgham with the letters. You would see, inshallah, when we study idgham, that the letters from the same articulation point merge. Sheen does not merge with the jim and the ya because of the quality of the fashi. It's a wider articulation point and the sound spreads, so it just like it like normally the idgham is that if the first letter is sakina and the second, so word like ashiya should be read ayya, because normal rule is if the from the same articulation point, first letter is sakina, second one has a haraka, then we do idgham. But we read it ashya because sheen does not hide behind other two, because it has too wide of articulation point, so it just is pronounced easily. So hams and rahawa, and obviously the width of just the entire tongue, these two qualities are giving us the quality of the fashi. Now istifal, the back of the tongue is lowered, and obviously when we have istifal, we have infitah. The sound, it just freely moves out. Now, it is spreading of the sound of sheen from its articulation point until it collides with the inner palate of the top and lower teeth. So it's just a wider articulation point that is giving us the fashi. And obviously this has to do with hams and rakhava. Okay, so now remember that the letters of rakhava, the timing when it comes to sakina, tashkurun, yashrabu. So I don't say tashkurun, I say tashkurun. Another thing when you need to be careful with the rakhava letters is the strength of that running of the sound. Tashkurun. I just started with really strong and then just it started to fade away, and then I went to the kaf. No, it needs to stay same throughout, because the pressure at the articulation point needs to be same, and then you just go to the next letter. Yashrabu, not yashrabu. Yashrabu. And even like there's a little part where it's fade now. Yashrabu. Tashtaru. And also with the الشيطان, when it has tashdid. Remember, tashdid means it has two of the same letters first in the sakina state, and then the second letter with the haraka. So it's been written as in tashdid. الشجرة الشجرة. Just put the wrong sign here. Subhanallah, I've just done, I don't know what. I think I've just made this up word up. Mm. Uh, so, shahida, khashiya, shukira, shahidun, mashi'atan, mashi'atan, yamshuna. Now the next letter is ya, and so again, middle of the tongue to what lies opposite of the upper palate with a bigger gap than the letter sheen. Now if you just go back, you'll see, just put all the in the you can see, subhanallah, where have I gone? Do we not have the not a good day for me today, subhanallah. I used to have in my university, even my teachers knew that I have one of the days in a semester where I just mess up everything. So please excuse me, subhanallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad barik sallam taslima. Okay, here we go. Uh, we can see here Jim, Sheen, and a Ya. There's no, it's just complete closure. Sheen, this is just a bit, there's a, just away, and there's more gap. With sheen, it's such a little gap that it just, when you're pronouncing the letter sheen, it seems like you are almost touching. Okay, so that doesn't, and it's quite an easy articulation point, and it is quite an easy letter. With ya, you have to, especially when there is tashdid on it, with sakina on it, you have to make sure you don't go to the articulation point with strength. And you make sure you stay away from the palate. Okay? Because if you go too close, it's going to, like, I would say, yeah. That's like mixed with the jim and the spread of the sheen. So I just feel like today I'm going to say sheem and a jean. So please excuse me if I do. So yeah, with the bigger gap than the letter sheen. And it's a jahr letter. That means even though the two articulation points don't collide, there's that coming of the articulation points closer together, it has strength in it. So you need to sort of master where the two articulation points, how close they need to come. So there is strength. It is strong enough for the vocal cords to close, so there is no air in the ya. And there's a open articulation point, so the sound is a Rakhava letter, so the sound runs. This is why it gets a bit tricky with the sakina and the in the mushadda state. Now it's the letter istifal because back of the tongue is lowered, so it's a light letter, and because istifal infitah. First we are, and obviously al-lin, subhanallah, I missed that. Al-lin, lean means softness. So when we have a maftuha letter before a sakina ya, so there's a letter with a fatha on it, and ya comes after that, and the ya has sukun. So and that is pronounced with ease and softness, and that's the quality of lean. And I don't say alayhim, I say alayhim. Lay, fatha of the lam, complete timing, followed by the ya sakina time. أيديهم should have been شيء. Okay, so do not rush from the lean. Take your time. It is two, it's a maftuha letters timing plus the lean timing. And I've just gone over this concept before as well, but if I am stopping at alay, no, it doesn't apply here. Here, it applies here. So if I'm here, alayhim is always going to be alayhim. If I'm saying alayhim, or I'm joining, okay? The timing of that is alayhim, only this much. Lam fatha ya sukun. Aydihim, timing of the hamza fatha and a ya sukun. Here, when the lean letter comes and it's the second last letter, if I am not stopping, I would say shay'in, shay'in. Okay, timing of the sheen fatha followed by ya sukun and hamza. I'm just, I'm saying it like that, shay'in. If I am stopping at it, I can't say shay. I would have to say shay. Now this has become a madleen. And madleen is either 2, 4, or 6. So I say shay, shay, shay. Okay, so there's a difference. Lean letter is always read with normal timing of the fatha followed by the normal timing of the ya or the waw sakina. But it changes when the lean letter is the second last letter of the word we are stopping at. Then it becomes madleen, and then the timing changes from rahawa timing of the ya to the 2 of the mad. Now, iyaka. Now here, that's where we need to make sure we know the articulation point and we know how to actually just keep that tongue and the palate separate. Iyaka. I can't say iyaka. That was too much. It just went too close. Or yeah, that went too close to the sheen. Like I spread my tongue too much and it's mixing with the sheen. So iyaka. Bayyinatu as-sayyi'atu yasif. I don't know. Okay. So yeah. Yasifu. Yudharu bayanun. First one was wrong. I said bayanun. That is the heel of the ya. Saying in between. Bayanun. Yeah. Not too close, but bayanun. Make sure. Sometime we need to make sure that we say the ya and not approximate it. Yurathu. Okay. Do we go into hafa? Yes, we go into hafatul lisan. Okay, hafatul lisan, sides. And from hafa, we have dad and a lam. I mentioned this before. The scholar, Imam Sibawi says, just obviously there are scholars who put lam in taraful lisan. And they would put lam in the same articulation point as noon and a ra. But we are putting the dad and a lam in hafatul lisan. So first one, dad, the side of the tongue. It is pronounced when the sides of the tongue, the entire sides of the are touching the gums and the upper molar. They don't quite touch the upper molars, they're just inside the molars. So it is basically gums. Inside the upper molars, as I should have said. Okay, so jahar, the entire sides of the tongue are touching the entire palate or the gums with strength. Okay. And even though there is no space for the sound to come out and there's no space for the sound to run in such, but there's a quality of dad, istitala, that is giving it the quality of rahawa. Okay. I couldn't quite actually, I didn't have enough time to, but I just this one, I think should look back at it. What istitala is. So what's happening is when the articulation, the entire tongue, the sides of the entire tongue, they hit the articulation point, the palate. From there, we need to sort of push the tongue slightly forward. Okay. And it, originally just touch the entire tongue where it's touching, that's the articulation. In the front is the articulation point of lam, the front of the hafa, front of the, the front sides. That's the lam articulation point. But when you push it slightly forward, that it should move to the right where the noon ra articulation point is, which is the gums. Okay. And after the tongue collides with the palate, it moves slightly to the front, due to which tip of the tongue moves from Bad Makhrij to the root area of the upper two incisors. And this is what gives the letter Bad is the rahawa, the running of the sound. The running of the sound of the Bad is in its istatala quality. Okay, so even though you might not be hearing much when there's a Dad is in a sakina state, but still there's a running of the sound that is happening, and we need to obviously understand that. And it is a letter of isti'la, that means the back of the tongue is raised, so it's a heavy letter, and it is amongst the four letters, which are even the middle of the tongue is raised, so this sound is quite encapsulated. It's a very heavy sound, bod. Another thing that you need to be mindful of is not to make the sound bod. There's a sound that's coming from a throat, bod. There are letters, I think they're all مستعلى مطبقة letters. Letters with استعلاء and إطباق, that we try to push them a bit too much, and then what we do is we bring in our throat in it. Okay? So the sound of is bod, bod, bod. It's not wad. That extra that's coming from a throat. Be mindful of that. Now, bod sakina, that's where you need to practice istitala more. Okay, so it's not al-ard, that's a qalqala, first thing. Second thing is that I only had the front of my tongue that touched the palate. That's why there was a qalqala. Um, so when I try to put the entire tongue, I just like hit the roof of the mouth. Sound should be al-ard. That that's me actually pushing the tongue slightly forward, and there's this like gurgling sort of thunder. I don't know why it sounds like, or whether you can hear it or not, but it should be like that. So the next word, تضحك. And it's very difficult to move from the word sakina to the next letter. If you are facing that difficulty, that means you have the word makhrij. If you're not, I can say تضحك, تض. That means I only got the front. So I can freely move. That even is with the normal word. When I say wudi'a, wudi'a, it takes me time from wu to the di. It takes me time. So if somebody is able to say wudi'a, wudi, that's not bad at all. ضارب, ضارب, not ضارب. It's ضارب. يضيع, أقيض, do, not do. You don't have I did not take enough time to actually pronounce the word properly. ضعف. That again, same thing. يحض. يحض. When ضاد مشدة, you get stuck on it. If you have the right articulation point, you are going to get stuck at ضاد. الضا. It's not الضا. الضا. That just I have even because we say it so many times, I'm hitting the entire tongue. Just on the roof of the mouth. But what I'm doing is just I'm raising the entire tongue. Now remember the wad is the sides of the tongue. So you're making sort of a cup. You raise the sides and it's like concave, and that sides they go up and they touch the palate. Okay, so Allah, we say walallah. It shouldn't be walallah. That means it's not enough time that I've just actually raised the side of the tongue and it's then hitting the palate. So you need to practice, obviously. And next thing is motivation, subhanAllah. This is speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to try to the best of our capacity. فأعرض. رض. ضاد. It takes time, but inshallah, with you just put effort. Sorry, just hope it's all right. I can take extra few minutes with the lamb because I wanted to cover up to lamb. Okay, hafatul lisan. Now, bod is the entire tongue. Okay, so but lamb is just the front. Even though it shows sort of a tip of the tongue, it's not quite the tip of the tongue. It's the side of the entire half, the front half of the tongue. Not exactly, if you just start measuring it, but it's like quite a large area and it touches behind the 8 teeth, the gums behind the 8 teeth. Now, adna al-hafa, the front of the side of the tongue and end of the tip of the tongue. So there's obviously, if it's touching the tip is also going to be now touching the palate, touching gums behind the top front 8 teeth. Now, this again, jahar, that means the articulation points are colliding with the force. And now here the articulation point is closed. If you imagine the sides of the tongue touching behind the 8 teeth, so it would just go in a shape like that. Okay, and that means that the articulation point is closed. Sound is drifting from the sides, and that's why it's called inhiraf. And because of inhiraf, the sound is drifting. It gives the sound the quality of tawassut, running in a moderate timing. Now, the back of the tongue is not raised, and hence it's also infitah letter. Okay. Now, we went over tafkhim and what did he mean by isti'la and tafkhim and the difference between it. So we learned that there could be letters which are not isti'la, that means the back of the tongue is not raised, yet they could have the heaviness in them, and that's a temporary sifa. And in that the Arabic letters are divided into 3 groups in relation with tafkhim, or whether they've got this heaviness or tarqiq, they are light. There are letters which are letters of isti'la, which are always tafkhim. They are always going to have tafkhim in it. And there are letters which are they're always tarqiq. And there are some letters which could be, some conditions make them heavy, and if those conditions are not met, they are light. And those are alif mad, sorry, and lam and ra. Okay. Um, Alif mad, it can be read with tafkhim or tarqiq. That we saw that when we have heavy letters, letters of isti'la before alif mad. Alif mad is read heavy. Kha, we say ka. And then we have ra. It is read with tafkhim tarqiq. When ra comes, we go through that. That's going to be a heavy lesson. And then lam. It is read with tafkhim only in lafzul jalala, Allah, and depending on the vowels preceding that. Letter lam is generally taqiq, light. We read all the lam in the Quran Kareem light, but only in lafzul jalala, Allah. There are two rules regarding it. Okay, so tafkhim, when we are beginning with the word Allah, so we're putting fatha on it, so we are reading it heavier. Allah, Allahu la ilaha illahu. So all the other lam are read light. If there's a fatha, so if there is if there is fatha on the word that's before it, hu Allah, or if there's a dhamma before it, wa idh qalu Allahumma, there's a dhamma before it, then we are reading it heavy. Tarqiq of letter lam, it is when there's a kasra before that. So even if, sorry, in lafzul jalala, there's a kasra before it. Bismillah. So it is huwa Allah, but Bismillah. And if there's a temporary kasra before it, Qulillahumma. So even though you just, it's going to be written. So this is just a rule. So be mindful. In Quran Kareem, it is going to be already written. So there's a temporary kasra. And before it's a tanween. This is a rule that actually would take time. So here it says qawman and Allahu. It's called al-taqaw sakinain. That means the meeting of the two sakinas. I can't say qawman Allahu. In Hafs, I say qawmanillah. We put the noon. Inshallah, what I'll do is I'll make, I think what I'll do is just make a little note in the chat. This was one of the concept I was going to do it like that anyway. So inshallah, I'll explain that there maybe. So lam, alhamdu, al-arm, al-mustaqim, alladhina. Make sure the timing. Alladhina, not alladhina. Allahu illa salaha khuliqa rusulun dalalun alayhim. There should be a fatha on it. Alim, sorry, it's a different word. Subhanallah. Alimun and qulubun. Okay, we stop here. Just going back. This concept, inshallah, what I was thinking was that I'm hoping, because I see about 40 people 40 students in the group, and there's how many are we here? There's time we had, I think it just went up, subhanAllah, 8 today. We were 10. So I'm hoping the rest of the students know, they think, okay, alhamdulillah, we know the basic tajweed. So I was going to put some concepts which are in advanced tajweed, just write few things which are actually for us to, which are necessary for us to know to recite the Quran properly. So I was going to explain them to everyone in the chat. This was going to be one of them. At Taqaw Sakinain, meeting of the two Sakinas. What happens in Hafs is when there are times when you have Sakina here, Qawman and Allah. This one, it's just obviously starting with lambs. We just what it joins. It doesn't, when you join, you don't you don't pronounce this alif. Okay? This is Hamzatul Wasl of al. So you don't pronounce it if I'm joining. So the first thing that's going to be coming next to qawman, noon after tanween, is going to be lam after, al. So two sakinas. Mm-mm. So if I was to, it's going to be, if I'm saying this as man, qawman, and this is going to be al. Oh, subhanallah. Okay. So we have two sakinas. In say situation like this, what happens is I don't recite this noon sakina. Okay. With the sukun qawma, I say qawma, and then in that one I just put a little kasra in it. So I would recite it as qawmanillah. In Arabic, you can't say the two consecutive, you can't pronounce two consecutive sukun. You can't have two consecutive sukun together. This word, subhanallah, here, originally it's qul Allahumma. And again, this was sakina by the sakina of the lam, sakina of the lam here. And how it was resolved was there was a kasra that was put there. Qulillahumma. That was resolved like that. Subhanallah. Again here. وَقَالُوا اللَّهُمَّ. Sakina after wow here. This is sakina. How it was resolved was this wow, it just omitted all together. And you join the lam to the lam here. So in Arabic, two sakina together cannot be pronounced. So there are different ways of resolving that. And obviously, I've just shown you three here. For the tanween, when tanween comes and after tanween there's a sakina, it could be in a state of sakin or it could be in a state of tashdid. What happens is we give the noon a kasra, and that's how we join it. Okay, so if there was a kasratain, that means there was two kasras, we just get rid of the noon sakina, we still give it a kasra to the noon. If there was dhammatain, we still give the noon sakina kasra. And that's how we subhanallah resolve this issue of two sakina together. Any questions? Not. Jazakumullah khair, and sorry for the extra time. Subhanallah.